So it's really common in our vernacular, in our lexicon of phrases, to hear people talk about getting a vibe about something. It can be about, a person, a place, or a thing, and it's sort of just this internal feeling that tells someone yes or no, positive or negative. Also, you hear people talking about being in a flow, being in a creative flow, being in a creative zone, and just feeling in a rhythm or kind of a flow about things. Well, the question is there any correlation between these questions and these ideas and the underlying ideas that make up holistic healing or alternative health practices? And that's exactly what we're going to look at in this video. And really understand that in the same way that music functions, so does the health of the human body. So we can understand music as really being a rhythm and a pulsation of instruments playing specific notes that then lead to harmony. Now, there's certain intervals that are very harmonious and have a very calming, soothing effect on the nervous system. There's other intervals that are very irritating and very sort of disharmonious to the nervous system. And this is something that doesn't require logic or analysis or thought or really any kind of education. Meaning if you don't know anything about music and you hear these intervals, your body will respond unconsciously regardless of you deciding, is that good or bad? It's really just an unconscious feeling-based reflex. And this is something that has been known and understood for a very long time, which is why historically there were certain intervals that were actually illegal, meaning there were certain intervals that couldn't be played because a lot of the music was coming out of churches and was really only made in churches, and people were commissioned to make music specifically for churches. And they realized that certain intervals had a certain effect on the nervous system or were kind of evil or kind of disharmonious, so they just didn't use them. Coincidentally, those intervals were fourths and fifths, and coincidentally, these intervals make up a lot of rock music and pop music today. And another example to that is we can look at the minor third. If you've ever heard an alarm clock that just sort of goes off and it's really irritating, you really hate it, well, that's usually a minor third interval. So in these examples and illustrations, we can easily understand that music is really the pulsation and rhythm of different instruments producing a harmonious tone or interval. Some are very harmonious and feel naturally good. Some are sort of disharmonious and naturally feel bad in a way that is unconscious and reflexive, and that really doesn't require the mind or intellect. Well, much in the same way, each of our organs are pulsating at a specific rhythm. Our heart is beating, that's very obvious, but the circulation of all of the fluids in our body are functioning in a similar way, and all of the organs have a similar pulsation happening. And you can look at the rhythm of the breathing. There are certain rhythms of breathing that are very harmonious, very relaxing, and other patterns of breathing that are very irritating and very sort of disharmonious and imbalancing for the body. And so in those examples, we can start to see a little bit of the connection between music and the pulsation and rhythm of the body. And we can also look at, well, what happens if we get stressed? What happens if we have emotional trauma or physical trauma? Things in the body start to shut down and start to distort, and those harmonious rhythms then start to become a little less harmonic, a little less soothing to the body. Much in the same way as if you were to listen to a song and it was going to go along in a certain tempo, and all of a sudden it's going to speed up, and then it's going to slow down, it's going to speed up, and then it's going to slow down. Really, that's going to be pretty irritating most of the time. But if you look at the mind, if you look at the rhythmic pulsation of the mind and your thoughts, and you look at the rhythmic pulsation of the breath, oftentimes we go along, it's really static, it's really steady, it's really chaotic, and then it slows down, then it's chaotic, and then it slows down. Or maybe our rhythm is just really all over the place. And in the same way, if we were playing an instrument, that would just sound terrible. No one would want to listen to it, and we would be sort of judged as not a very good musician. Well, we can translate that over to looking at the pulsation and rhythm of the body and say, well, how rhythmic and what is really going on here? And taking that understanding further, we can look at methods of diagnosis for different alternative healing methods, being say acupuncture or Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or Tibetan medicine. The list goes on. Really the point is they are really looking at using the pulse as a form of diagnosis, meaning reading your pulse at your wrist or different parts of the body and listening and seeing what the pulsation of the organ is, seeing what the rhythm of that organ is, to determine really where it's at and really where it is at on the spectrum, what kind of frequency it's putting out. So from that we can understand that really if we have traumas, we have gone through different things, which pretty much all human beings have. So this is all manifest in the body still. Because even if we don't really process it consciously or even think about it, the body remembers, the body stores it. And the way we breathe is affected, the way we digest our food is affected, the way our heart beats, everything about our body is affected and is obvious and apparent to those who have eyes to see it and those who know where to look. So that's oftentimes the value of having a really good practitioner who can see and can look, and who can look at you and tell you more about you than if you had actually told them things verbally. Meaning that's oftentimes how you can look at a good practitioner is you don't have to tell them anything. They can just look at you, maybe read your pulse and say, oh, here's what you might have going on. Is that true? And you might say, oh, yeah, that feels right. So from all of these examples, we can easily see and understand really this baseline idea that underlies a lot of holistic health practices, and see how it's really simple and easy, but maybe hasn't always been translated over into an application for the physical body. So really the question now is, where might this understanding lead us? What could we imagine could be different? What could we imagine that could change if we really started to understand this idea and apply it in our own body? How might our choices become different? How might we choose different thoughts or beliefs or different lifestyle habits and patterns? These are all very important things to consider and things to imagine here and now in the present moment. Taking what we've just learned and taking these understandings and applying them to our body, applying them to our lives, and understanding and realizing that it's not necessarily about the intellect and the mind, because it's really an unconscious reflex in the body. In the same way that if you play someone really disharmonious music, their body will respond. If you play something that's more harmonious, more harmonic, the body will respond a little bit differently. So really at the end of the day, the question is just up to us, where we want to go, what we want to focus on, and what kind of song or what kind of tune we want to play. So hopefully that's been helpful. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll talk to you soon.